All right, guys, we're going to start in about 5 minutes. Make sure everybody gets on here. Thanks for being here. We'll be starting in like 3 minutes. So just 3 more minutes and we'll be here. Ready? Excited. Hey guys, we got 2 minutes and we'll get started. Thank you for being here. I just want to make sure we start on time, make sure we get everybody. Thank you. We'll start in 1 minute. All right, getting ready to get started. I'm so excited to have everybody here. So welcome to this 5-day movement challenge. I just want to start off by congratulating you. I think it's amazing that whether you're a mom or a dad or a nanny or any type of caregiver for a child, like this is such awesome information. I'm so proud of you for taking the time to learn this information, because you're really truly here to give your child like a huge advantage. So I can't wait to do this with you guys. When I first started building Brilliant Brains, I had to tell my husband, this isn't for everybody, right? Like I know this isn't for everybody. It's really for those parents, for those people that really want to give their child the advantage. We know that pediatricians will tell you milestones, they'll hit them when they hit them. Like, it's no big deal. But what I want you to know is that after you learn and understand brain development, you're going to know that that's not true. It's not true that we want to just lackadaisically let our baby's brain develop, especially when you can have the knowledge to do it on purpose. Not everybody wants that, and I'm totally good with that, but that's why I'm here. Is I want to share this with you. I want to be here for those parents that are not as much in survival mode, but really in thriving mode, and they really want to give their child the biggest advantage that they can have in their life. That love for learning, that lifelong love for learning, which I think is so important. Whether your child is actually behind on milestones right now, which that's okay. I'm glad you're here. This is the best thing that you can do for your child to get them caught up on those milestones. Or you're just looking for the knowledge that gives you that confidence as a parent. I'm here for you. I'm excited to see where we can take your babies, or your child's not only physical capabilities, but also their like intellectual capabilities, because they go hand in hand, and you're going to learn all about that. So congratulations on being here. Let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so what to expect from our 5-day challenge this week? You'll be learning, we're going to recreate nature's blueprint for brain development. So we know that our society is not these days lined up or ready for baby development, especially the more that we learn about how important movement is and what most baby gadgets look like, right? So each day I'll teach you a new brain principle. I'm not going to download on you, but I want you guys to really have a good understanding. I feel like knowledge is power. And so understanding that motivates you to want to do these things with your child. And so we're also going to learn a new movement every day. So we've got lots of different movements that you're going to learn. And by the end, I'm hoping that we can get your child closer to that next brain level. And so speaking of brain levels, I want to make sure that everybody's taken the brain levels quiz. Okay. So the brain levels quiz is really important because it's going to allow you to know what stage we're working towards. And so the understanding of that was a free quiz. It should have been in your emails. Go back and take that quiz if you haven't taken that before. It's going to help you really cue in on where you're at right now. But it's really important to also be able to learn all the stages and be able to see all the stages. We know that most things out there are based on age. Okay. So for example, I have Love Every up here, right? Amazing company has Montessori toys. They come subscription mode. It's all based on age. Well, when I bought this for my son, Phoenix, when he was little for his first Christmas, and I had to lie about his age because I knew he was going to be far and ahead of what the age levels were because his brain was being developed on purpose. And so I think that we see that a lot with toys, with lots of different, equipment and things like that. They're saying 18 months when my kid was crawling up at 5 months old. Do you know what I mean? Or 8 months old. And so it's really important for you to understand that there is a huge difference in what babies can really do versus what products are able to put on their labels. And so I want to make sure that you understand that as we go through life and as we're going through their childhood, that a lot of the times if you see this is for 6+, or for example, my son just finished a Lego this morning and he's 7, but he crushed a 10+, and actually my 5-year-old did half of it. So these kids are capable of things that go far and beyond what we actually understand that they can do. And that's what I'm here to show you now. So let's talk. I'm going to make this bigger for you. Let's talk a little bit about milestones, specifically the history of milestones. We often assume that the baby's brain is just going to develop due to time, right? And it's just due to biology. But when we look at milestones over time have changed. And when we look at our biology, our genes haven't changed in over 20,000 years. So we're not different humans. Why are we expecting our babies to do things so much later than we used to? I think, on this chart specifically, potty training is a huge one. We know that's been influenced by diaper companies and different things like that. But we can do so many things with our kids way earlier, but most people don't even know to introduce these things early enough to make that happen. And so we know that the CDC just changed the guidelines back in 2022, 2023. There were some huge changes here, okay? So number one, crawling is no longer listed. They couldn't decide when most kids crawled, so they just tossed it. which almost makes it look like it's not important, but it's one of the most important milestones there is. So we have to keep that in mind. Walking independently, they moved from 12 months to 15 months. It used to be 10. So we used to expect our kids to walk at 10 months old. And the craziest one to me is using 2-word phrases, moved from 24 months to 30 months. And I think about like my child who's just a little over 2 years old, and she's speaking in full sentences. And I just think about if people only knew that they like need to be talking to their kids and doing things like this earlier, and like I said, working this child and getting them their development to come along quicker makes such a huge, massive difference. So when we talk about brain development, shortly after becoming a chiropractor, I came across this book, and it was called How to Teach Your Baby to Be Physically Superb. And they talked about brain development, and the Doman Institutes we're specifically, working with kids with brain injured children. And so what happened was they started working with these kids, and then their methods were working so good that some of these kids that had brain injury were reading at 3 and 4 years old. And so they decided, oh, wait, what would happen if we did this with a child that doesn't have any type of brain issues, but just developed their brain on purpose? And they saw amazing things. They saw these kids like very physically superb, very, very intellectual, speaking full sentences really early, great respiration, just being able to do crazy things that kids their age like aren't supposed to be able to do, and all through purposeful brain development, which is exactly what was like music to my ears as a young pediatric chiropractor. This was like 16 years ago, but I just fell in love with it. And then I got to have my own kids, right? And as I started to have my own kids, I got to play with what exactly happens with brain development. So here you can see I got to see, like, before even having my own kids in my own practice, I was able to see how brain development could happen with a lot of the children that came into my practice. And so what was crazy about my practice specifically was that I have lots of kids that come into my practice with torticollis, which is a neck condition, which doesn't allow them to move their neck properly because they're really tight in their neck. So that's something chiropractors work with all the time. Well, due to that, we see lots of kids with delays. And so kids that haven't rolled, because you have to be able to move your neck to be able to roll. You haven't crawled because they haven't done things like that. And so it's really important to understand that I got to teach these people, okay, let's start some vestibular movements. Vestibular movements was the number one thing that I would give these kids with that had any type of delays, because once they started understanding and moving in gravity and their brain started to develop in that capacity, they were able to crush milestones and catch right back up. That's the coolest part about this, is nothing's missed forever, right? We can go back and correct and redevelop that brainstem. We're going to talk a little bit about that now. But, when I first started building Brilliant Brains, I knew in my practice, people loved this information, but I wanted to be able to get it out to more people. And so starting it on Instagram 2.5 years ago, almost, I have been able to just reach a lot of people and be able to show them. And the thing everybody loves is the vestibular movement. So that's why I wanted to do this challenge for you today. And so I'm just excited to show you specifically how I have implemented this and how you can implement it so easily. So the first thing that we have to understand is how the brain develops. And the brain develops from the base of the brain, right? From the brainstem up to the pons, the medulla, to that midbrain, before you can get up to the cortex. Okay, the cortex is where we really learn things. And so the fact that you have to understand is that all of this happens through the body in the beginning. And so that the body's first language literally is movement. So we have to move our babies. And so you think about, like I said, all the contraptions that are out there for our children, how often we have to put them in car seats where we're restricting their motion, we're restricting their body's ability to learn the world. And so we have to remember that because of the way that our society is set up today, that we have to take the time to do this on purpose and to prioritize that time period. Like I see, one of the other things I see a lot is, babies that have reflux, they want to put them in sit-me-ups because that really helps keep all the food down and makes baby feel better. But then they're missing out on a lot of the brain movement or the brain development that we want to see. And therefore, I want to help you understand, number one, why it's important, but also number two, just how to do it. Because a lot of times okay, I get it. My baby or my child or whatever needs brain development, or needs movement, but how do I do that? And so I think it's really important that as we start to understand, we can develop the understanding that, and knowing that it builds almost like a foundation, right? And so we've got that brainstem. The brainstem doesn't develop properly. For example, we have primitive reflexes that oftentimes will stay unintegrated, and therefore, if they're unintegrated, they're like distractions to our brain. So those are the kids that are, can't focus, can't sit still, because their primitive part of their brain is seeking that need, right? And so what we need to do is help them integrate that so that they can move on to that higher brain level, which is it can be hard to do sometimes. And so I'm excited to always help you in that process of going back, but more importantly, if we can start with it from the beginning and be able to raise our babies and raise our kids in that way of understanding how important it is to develop the brain from the brainstem all the way up. And so one of my favorite analogies when it comes to brain development is understanding compound interest. So if you think about compound interest when it comes to money, right? It's so important that it's all about time. And so it's all about getting that information or that money into the bank account early. And so just like investing money, every time our child rolls, our child climbs, our spends balance, you're making deposits into their little brains so that they can be richer, right? Like they can be richer in neural pathways, that they can be richer in connections and with brain body connections. I love this middle picture. This middle picture is a picture of a pathway. And so you think about it, and I love this because it just is such a good relationship with the brain. Imagine if every time you leave your house, you go out to the shed and you go from your shed back to your house, and your house to your shed back to the house, right? You end up creating a pathway. And so if somebody else comes out and they want to go out to the shed, they're probably going to go that pathway because it's easier, right? And that's just like our neural connections and our thoughts, our ability to balance. If you think about it, every sport out there, we need to be able to balance. As we get older, it's so important that we keep our balance to stay strong and healthy. And so we want those neural pathways to be really strong. And the earlier that they go down, the easier it is for those connections to be made, and that we can make those pathways over and over and over again. And so if we can just teach parents, I love being able to teach parents, but also practitioners, to understand that daily movement is like a daily deposit. It's a daily deposit really affects the child's overall trajectory when it comes to how easily can they learn, how easily can they write, how easily can they play sports or swing a baseball bat or whatever it might be. And so I think it's just it's fun to think about that and understand that, because the earlier that we understand that, the better. And so when we talk about brain development, there are 7 pillars to brain development. So vestibular is only one of them. However, I believe vestibular movements are foundational and so important in understanding how it can affect all the rest of them. I do have a program called our brain building checklist. It incorporates all 7 of our pillars, but we're looking at language, fine motor, we're looking at gross motor, tactile, auditory, and visual. And so we're developing those at each stage all the way through. I just have that one going up to 24 months at this point, but I'm excited to be expanding that here in the near future. And so we are spending the most time on what I consider the most important pillar, which is that vestibular system. And so we want to talk specifically about that vestibular system. So let's talk about this just a little bit. Understanding the vestibular system, it is our internal GPS. It is what is helping us with coordination and balance. And so specifically what I want you to understand about that is it's located in our inner ear, is where the input goes. And basically what's happening is our semicircular canals are detecting rotation, while the otolith organs actually detect gravity and that linear movement. And so we're creating integration of basically the visual side of our system with our body, creating coordination and orienting things like crawling, walking, balancing, gymnastics, sports. This affects literally everything. So I think it's just really important for us to understand the importance that this is truly a hidden superpower. Okay. Balance, in my opinion, is the unsung hero. When I think about athletes, if they train balance, they're going to be faster, they're going to be stronger, they're going to be quicker, because balance is a huge piece and a huge part of it. We know that our eyes always need to keep us level. And so therefore it's so important to, it impacts our posture when we're working that vestibular system properly. Every time a child wobbles, balance is something we just have to get good at, right? In order to like move on. So throughout this week, we are going to talk about how these movements directly impact our gross motor milestones. So that'll be principal on Tuesday. So you can really understand how it directly affects it, right? Number two, we're going to talk about how these movements integrate our primitive reflexes, which is part of the brain development, the part of the growth that, like I said, can really protect our system against learning disabilities, different things like that, which I think is really important. The fourth day, we will be talking how we are primitively made, right? And how we are supposed to be moving, and like what that looks like with our ancestors and what that will look like in our future. And then on that fifth day, we're going to talk about specifically just overall how movement builds athleticism and how important that is in our system overall when we are working to develop that piece of our children. So practical integration, we want to make sure that you're able to do like daily vestibular snacks, right? And so meaning that we want to be able to be implementing these several times throughout the day. It's not just a workout, right? We want like some workout time, but at the same time, we really want this integrated into our daily life all throughout the day. And so we're going to talk about how to implement that. But our floor time is core time. Such important time, especially with our little ones. But even like my 7-year-old, I still make him get on the floor with me. We spend a ton of time on the floor, working on different balances, working on different kinds of athletic moves and all that. But being on the floor makes a huge difference. We want to minimize containers, maximize gravity, and you will see the joy that this brings your child as we go along. So let's move into it. What I love to talk about is the specific movements, and we have 5 movements that we are going to be discussing. And so when we're talking about these different kinds of movements, I'm going to teach you through each stage, because I have everybody on here from 0, maybe you're expecting a baby, all the way through 7 years of age. And so I want you to be able to see what these look like. Now, one thing I want you to understand about these movements is that even though I have them specific, like for example, the first one is going to be done on a pillow, right? We're going to start with spinning. And so today is all about spinning and what this is going to do for our system. And so when we look at spinning or at these specifically, it doesn't mean that I can only do it for stage 1. I can also do it for stage 2. Okay. And so as we go along, you're going to be able to compound. We just want to know that, okay, not all, like stage 5 is probably not safe for a baby at stage 1. And so understanding that you can progress this way, that you can progress this way, but not going ahead of the brain level. We really want to make sure that we are keeping those babies healthy and safe and having fun with that. And so as we introduce the brain levels, like I mentioned, it is progressive in nature. And so I'm going to show you, I have a doll here. I did not want to try to go live with any children. I didn't think that was probably going to go well for me. So I want to take you guys through these motions. And so before we go into that, I really want you to understand what spinning specifically does for a child. Okay, so not only are we stimulating the vestibular system, but we're also stimulating the cerebellum, which again is all helping with brain-body connection and that specific coordination with the body. And it also enhances our focus and our spatial awareness. If our body is still needing a lot of vestibular movement, a lot of motion, especially our young ones. I mean, I'm sure you've seen that, especially if you have toddlers. You take them outside and get them running, get them moving, they're going to sleep a lot better, right? Well, the exact same is true for our older kids, but it's also true for our babies. Like a lot of babies are not sleeping well because they need vestibular movements. And you'll see a lot of times when you're doing these vestibular movements, it actually puts them to sleep. I'm sure you've seen that specifically in swings and things like that. So I think that's really important for you to understand. So when we see kids seem wild, like a lot of the times this is like right before bed, you'll see kids get really wild. We want to make sure that we understand that they're calibrating, right? They might be just getting in that extra vestibular stuff that they need right before they go to bed. And so I think it's really important for us to understand how that all is working, and that doing vestibular movements actually brings calm to the body and brings specifically calm to our children. And so understanding that when we are spinning, there are some things that I do want you to watch for. I wish I could put video on here. It's really hard to do that, but I will figure that out eventually. This is my first one. So again, thank you so much for being here for this. But one of the first things that we want to do is you want to watch their eye movement, because when you spin around, like the eyes have to recalibrate. And so what you're going to see, especially because I usually like to see 10 spins each way, is you want to be able to look at their eyes and see, are they shaking and recalibrating? The amount of time that it takes for that to happen, if it seems like it's taking longer, then a lot of the times we want to start off maybe with 5 instead of 10, right? And so being able to read your baby, they should always have fun. Like they should love it. It should not be something that they're like, ugh. But it's okay also if they're like, kind of like, what is going on? What is happening here? We want to see that they continue to have curiosity, right? We want to see the eye movement, and we want to see that they continue to have postural control. If we see babies, especially if you're working with babies, startling, that's totally okay. But again, you want to back it up a little bit, because that can be a sign that it's a little bit too much. The other thing you're going to notice is a lot of the times they want to hang on, okay? And that's totally good. That's another primitive thing that's working those primitive reflexes. So we're integrating primitive reflexes as that happens. We want to see our older kids giggling. We should see calmness afterwards. And if there's some motion sensitivity on the parent side, we got to find somebody else to do the spinning for you. I know I've had lots of patients tell me, oh my gosh, I will puke. And I don't want any parents throwing up from this. So really important that we're able to take care of ourselves in this way as well. All right, so let's get started. The first thing that we have is our bobbly babies. So our stage 1. I love to do this specific one on a pillow. So you'll see in my reels lots and lots of different kinds of pillow exercises. So I've got my baby here, and we are going to bring you guys down to be able to look at this one on the floor. So I've got my pillow here. I don't know if you guys have seen, I do have a specific pillow that I really do love. It's a tri-core pillow. It has, you can see it. Bring it down just a little bit more. You can see it has a little bit of a dip in it. It's a little bit of like a hole in it. It's actually a really great cervical pillow. I am going to put baby on this as well. I love adding the black and white motion, or black and white, to the, obviously my baby can't keep her head up right now. So, but a lot of the bobbly babies can't. So the little bit of inversion like this makes a really big difference to take off some of the pressure of gravity. But here, all we're going to do is you're just spinning baby around on the pillow. I like having like a soft surface just like this, because it moves really smooth and really easily this way. So usually I like to go 10 to the right or clockwise, and then 10 counterclockwise to make sure you're getting that input. Like I said, a lot of times babies will fall asleep during this, but if they're up and looking around and moving their head, you'll see it really works those neck muscles in the back, and we're getting that vestibular movement properly in place. So that is stage 1 spinning. So next we're going to move on to stage 2. Sorry about that. Okay, so stage 2 is really fun. I love this one. I love carriers. This is a great way to also get vestibular movement. I can say it's so easy. It's called the Lily Baby, but they have this one on Amazon. Anyways, you're going to strap baby onto you. We're going to bring baby right in here. And this is where we get involved. And so you're going to get the benefits too, and we'll talk about that as well. I'm going to make a little strap back here. And all you're going to do here is you get to support baby a little bit. If you want to, if they're starting to get stronger, you can actually allow their head to feel a little bit of the inertia as you're going around. But this is just movement just like this. So anytime you're out and about, giving them a little bit of a spin can make a really big difference. Always make sure you go back the other way. And like I said, you're able to look here and be able to see, do you have that nystagmus, that movement side to side, which means that your baby is just simply recalibrating right there. All right, let's move on to stage 3 with our creepy crawlies. Now, this is one that you actually can do retroactively. Like I've done this with newborns plenty of times, is to be able to bring baby up onto your shoulder. We want to bring them into the horizontal plane because that's the plane that we're really working on before they've mastered crawling on all fours. So you bring them into this horizontal mode. You see their head over my shoulder here. You can have their arms up there as well if they're not super strong, but at this point they should be pretty strong. And again, just spinning around each way, bringing baby both ways. So like I usually try to go 10 times in each direction for creepy crawlies. All right, let's move on. We're going to go to wobbly walkies, which means that babies are upright. They've mastered crawling. They haven't fully mastered walking at this point, right? So we're working a different area of the brain. Now we want to learn gravity in the vertical plane, right? So the more that we can learn in the vertical plane, because they've already mastered crawling. So that means they're going on all fours, moving no problem that way. They're pulling themselves up on things, but now they're ready to truly master their system crawling. And so you bring baby out this way, and we're going to do big circles around. And most babies, like you'll see, they are giggling and laughing and usually saying more, right? And so being able to go back in the other direction, so important for all of that movement when it comes to our wobbly walkies. All right, next we're going to get into our steady strides, which again is another one. I'm not sure I have quite enough room here, but I believe that I do. I can also easily send you guys this video if you need to, if this is not my best performance. But here we call this like an around the world, and this is a really fun exercise to do with kids. They typically love it. You bring their feet together here, your feet are together. And it's a great ab workout, actually, for our mamas, too. And so, okay, so we're just going to roll back and forth and back and forth and just an easy movement like that, right? And you always want to make sure you're going both ways. But this one's awesome because it really is engaging their abs, too. So they're getting stronger. They're able to walk and stride. But they love this type of movement, especially with a parent, because it does make it really, really fun. So let's move on to our speedy scrunchies. And so these kids are really getting strong. I have a dowel rod for this. And so we're going to, your child should be able to hang at this point, which hanging is a whole other thing that I can't wait to get into with you guys. But I'm going to hold her hands on here, but obviously she would be engaged. Okay, so she'd be holding on herself. But this is a really fun exercise to do, and it really, really stimulates that vestibular system. Also gets really a lot of strength into the shoulder girdle. So we're just going to spin around like this, and they're holding on, and they can let go. Just make sure you don't go too quickly. And also just know your child's strength and how long they will hang, because that makes a really big difference. But honestly, this is one of my kids' favorites. Even my 7-year-old continues to love to do this one as long as we can hold them up, because they get pretty heavy as time goes on. Okay, so next one is we're just going to work this one in a chair. This is just another option. You can do it in a chair, or another option that you can do is actually like on a swing. And so, but finding anything that spins and putting them in a seat like this, or like I mentioned on a swing, this is just a really great way for them to really start that spinning process and really integrate these movements into their brain. The last one is we're going to go to is just working to help your child actually spin on their own. So this one's a little bit difficult because obviously this looks like a baby, but all of these kids are quite a bit bigger. And I actually did it with my 2-year-old this morning, and she was able to do it. But instead of, you can obviously teach them how to do it themselves. But what's really cool is when you actually help them just move around. And so at this point in life, they're able to feed their vestibular system on their own, but challenging them, making them do the things that are so good for them. Like, all right, how many times can you spin around without falling over? Just some of those games are just make this so much fun, and they love when you challenge them, but you also have to know, like, as you've understood brain development, that also means you're feeding their brain, you're calming their nervous system, making a massive, huge impact on their overall brain development. And hey, this is something I want you to understand is join them. They love when you play with them. They love that interaction and that experience with you. And it is actually one of the 5 Tibetan rites. So the first Tibetan rite, if you guys don't know what that is, but it's basically a set of 5 exercises to keep you young. And I love to do these. And they have you spin to the left 10 times, 10 to 20 times. And it actually is because it's going to help your posture, it's going to help your body stay younger, it's going to help you with your balance and your coordination, which clearly is going to make you a younger human. So, hey, this is good for you too. So I want to keep that in mind. So today I want to just recap quickly that, our brain grows by our kids' brain grows by use and not by age. And so we are wanting to be on purpose with our movements. Vestibular input is one of the foundational pieces when it comes to overall brain development. And movement is the body's first language. And spinning is our first exercise of 5 exercises that you will learn that you see as really helping to coordinate our body with our eyes, our body with gravity, and then overall allowing the brainstem, the midbrain, and getting ourselves up to that cortex, or getting our kids up to that cortex so that they can develop their brains even better. So you've got some homework. Okay, so I want you to get on some of this homework. Specifically, I want you guys to take that brain level quiz. I want to make sure that you understand exactly where your kid's brain level is. Tomorrow I'm going to ask you, I want to hear who's all online. So I want to be able to hear that from everybody. I want everybody to make sure that you go and find your child and make sure you do some spinning for at least 1 minute. Okay, 1 minute of spinning, which is kind of a lot if you really think about it, but 2 times a day. So twice a day is really what we want to see for most of these vestibular exercises. If you take that time, it's going to make a huge difference on your child's overall brain growth and development and emotional regulation, which is really fun. And then I want you to observe them. How are they? I want to hear your questions. I want to hear what you guys have to say as far as that goes, because I want to understand what you guys are seeing, and I want to give you feedback so that you can really get the most from this challenge, get the most from this experience, and be able to see your baby, your child make huge progress in the world of milestones. If I could have you take anything from today, it's the fact that movement is not optional. Okay. I actually like to think of it as a nutrient for my body. I tell my patients that all the time. I'm like, don't just think of movement as a luxury. It's foundational. And especially when it comes to our kids' brain development, right? So we have to understand that movement is vital for our system, and it's vital for our system at any age. So parents, caregivers, you need to be moving too. So maybe that's why you guys had kids, right? It's to keep us young, keep us moving, keep us going. Movement's foundational, and it's foundational even into mastery when it comes to our kids playing sports later on and things like that. Our child needs balance for regulation. So if your child's not regulated, we probably need to work on some balance things. And so keep that in mind. I already can't wait for tomorrow. I already can't wait to experience tomorrow with you. Thank you so much for joining us today. I do want to say this. We do have our VIP, which is $29. It does give you lifetime access to our recordings. I know not everybody is going to be able to join us. And so there are some special discounts that go with the VIP access, and you get priority as far as it goes with question and answer. Tonight it'll be moving up at midnight to $49. So if that's something that you are interested in, go on and register, and we'll be able to get you the link for that as well. So I am ready for some Q&A now. I see I have one question. Great. I have a 5-month-old. We do a lot of yoga ball rolling. When is it appropriate to put your baby on their back to roll upside down? So I've done it from birth before. At 5.5 months old, you're ready. Babies are it's very safe to do inversions, and actually that's going to be one of our days. So we're going to talk about inversions. And putting a baby on a ball is just such a simple, clean, easy way to get some of that motion into their body. And so inversions, oftentimes I think a lot of people are a little bit scared of them, and that's why we're going to talk about them. We're going to go through that. And so I think that, I can't remember exactly which day that is, but it's coming up. We're also going to talk about balls. So that's going to be really beneficial as well. But you should be good to go at 5.5 months, as long as like they've got really good neck stability. That's really the biggest thing. You'll see their core will build up really strong when you put them on their back as well. How about this one? When you say that when you say you can do this with newborns, did you mean from the day they were born, or wait until they're a week or two old? This is a parent's call. If you read Doman's book, he's gonna say you get this going day one, right? But personally, I mean, even as much as I know about all of this stuff, I would do some of these motions. My biggest thing was to get them on their belly as much as possible. I loved putting my baby over a boppy pillow and just giving them the ability to like get those legs moving and get their body moving as a newborn. But spinning, like, I mean, it's totally up to you. It's good for them, I think that it's always that like newness that sometimes makes all of that just a little bit tougher in that specific way. Awesome. And we have another question. Okay, how about holding them upside down by holding them by their legs? And how old is it safe to start? So I don't like to hold them like, let me grab my dog. I still won't even do this with my 2-year-old, holding them like this, even though I know that it's safe. It just doesn't feel like, I just know with their hands, it's really important for engagement to like not put too much of that strain on their ligaments. And unless if you have like a monkey as a baby, I think it's going to be pretty hard to like be holding them upside down. So I always recommend, and you'll see in all of my videos, if you grab them by the hips and you hold them in this way upside down, that's such a safer way to give that child an inversion, which is awesome for them, right? And so being able to do that like, I know as chiropractors, we were actually taught that as a way to check for tension and be able to see if there's asymmetry in the body. And so we do that from newborns on. Okay. And so I do think that it's a very safe movement. If you really think about it, and I'll talk about this when we talk about inversions, babies like they're up, like typically if you're pregnant, right, you want baby head down, which means that they're inside of you like this, right? And so they're being inverted is totally safe for a baby's brain. I think a lot of people try to say that that's not true, but it is 100% true. So you can actually start that super, super early on in development. I know another common question that I get with vestibular movements is like just how safe it is for the brain. I think a lot of people have heard about like shaken baby syndrome and different things like that. We'll talk about that also more when we get into some of the other movements. But one thing I want to assure you is you can even find this information all over the place, is that we make sure that that we understand that movement is really, really safe. And so when we talk about shaking baby syndrome, it's a violent shaking, it's a sudden shaking. And so understanding that when we're doing different kinds of movements like this, that their brains are so safe. And so I just want to give you guys that as well. Okay, let's see. Okay, if I hold, it just says that. So no, if we held them by their legs at 4 months, did I do damage? Probably not. Like I said, if you actually look in Doman's book has you doing a lot of this with babies, is like holding them like by their leg and their arm. And so no, I don't believe that you do damage. Like I mentioned before, I think everybody has a little bit of a different comfort level. I've never heard of any babies being damaged from like bringing them upside down and holding them by their legs. But I like to err on the side of caution, especially in the position that I'm in. I don't think that you did any damage whatsoever. Someone put your brain at ease when it comes to that as well. Any other questions out there? Because I love getting to answer any questions, especially as we're on this journey of having fun and understanding what the brain development is all about. I am here for you. So especially tonight, as you spend some time with your kids and doing some spinning and seeing how your own vestibular system works. Let me know what kind of questions you might have. And otherwise, I will be excited and so pumped to see you guys tomorrow at noon. Please let me know if there's specific things that you want me to cover. I love feedback. I really do always want to be better for parents, and I love this information. I hope you guys fall in love with it too, because it is such a game changer when it comes to our kids' overall world. I got one other question. It says, what is Doman's? The Doman Institute is a specific institution up in Philadelphia, and they are all about child brain development. They have an institute called the Institutes for Achieving Human Potential. So it's just a really cool place, a great way for us to learn. They've studied tons of kids, tons of brain injuries. That's what their specialty really lies in. But they also teach parents of well children how to develop their child's brain on purpose. I took a class called How to Multiply Your Baby's Intelligence, and it was a lot of the stuff that I'm teaching. I've added in my own twist as being a chiropractor and seeing a lot of, and working with kids clinically and being able to just create ease in the program, because a lot of these programs are pretty detailed and there's a lot going on because you're coming back from a brain injury. But what I am passionate about is really helping parents, with a well child. Not that I love to work with kids that also have some brain injuries or some delays, but really helping parents start and implement this stuff from the start and make it super fun. So that's what the Doman Institute is all about. My next question, is it safe to hold your 4 or 5 month baby by the hands without their grip? That's where we can get into trouble sometimes. And so here's my suggestion with that is when it comes to, I'm going to show you with my baby down here, is if you're holding baby and you're let's say, for example, they're on the ground and you can get them to engage, but they're starting to slip and you want to hold them up to here, totally good. If you even want to help them up to standing, no problem. It's the full on hanging that as long as they're mostly engaged and you can catch their hand at the end, their joints are still going to be fine. For the most part, what most people are worried about with this is nursemaid's elbow, which is typically a quick jolt, right? It's a quick movement. That's what can really stress those ligaments. But to be safe, you want to really know that everything's good and that your child's going to be safe. You want them holding on to you, really truly being able to get them to engage. So you want to work them up to that point. Okay. And so I think that you'll be amazed if you do it consistently every day, how quickly your child wants to do it and wants to hang. And they have the ability from birth. So they're strong enough. They have the ability from birth to do that. And so the more that you play with them with that, you'll be amazed at 4 to 5 months old. 4 to 5 months old is typically, they've lost their grasp reflex and they're able to consciously let go. So a lot of the times you can almost see a little bit of a regression in them wanting to hang because they're like, oh my gosh, I can let go. It's part of the brain development process. That's what we want, right? We want to be able to see that they can let go, but then they get really strong because consciously they want to hang. So you'll see that change happen pretty quickly. How about our next question? Okay, side question. If my 4-month-old wants to be sitting all the time, what is unsafe and safe to have them in supported sitting? Okay, so I do not like training sitting ever. I try to keep my child out of sitting as often as humanly possible when they haven't mastered crawling. So they like sitting. It's not that you're specifically doing damage, but what I always tell people is it's this scrunched up, supported seated posture is not good for their overall posture. Their spine is developing right now. So as a chiropractor, of course, I'm hating that piece of it, right? And so it's really important, in my opinion, to really be working them in a horizontal posture as much as possible. That doesn't mean they only have to be on tummy time. That means they can be on their side. That means if they can get themselves to sitting, that means they're getting stronger that way, right? And if they're able to sit on their own. But I really try to avoid putting kids in things. Now, obviously we have to do car seats, right? So they're going to be in a supported seated position that way. But to just hang out I really try to avoid just a seated position for a baby who can't keep themselves up on their own, because then it's almost like, how are they going to be motivated to want to move, right? And that's one of the things that I see in my practice all the time is like, oh, but my kid loves to like sit up. Okay, but anytime they're sitting up, they're not developing their brain in the capacity that's, against gravity in that horizontal position. So are they going to move? Because they're not going to move from here. Do you know what I mean? And so I hope that makes sense to you. If you have other questions about that, I'll definitely follow up. But I'm not a huge fan of like sitting a baby up in any kind of contraptions prior to them mastering all fours, if that makes sense. Awesome. Go ahead. And is there another one? Let's see. A little tricky with trying to get a baby ready for baby-led weaning. What do you suggest if baby isn't ready to sit but must sit to eat solids? So this is such a good question. I'm so glad you asked it. It feels unrelated, but it's actually completely related. I talk about this with patients all the time because people always are like, oh, I really want to get my kid eating solids, but they say they have to be able to sit up straight. I think it's really, really important. It doesn't mean it's like that it's not possible, but when we think about choking and different things like that, the stronger that the body is, they're going to handle solids so much better. So for their own safety, you really want to see them sitting up. And so the core is the most important part for sitting. Okay. So when it comes to that, like you can train their core every day. And I guarantee you, if they're right there and very close, because if they're ready for baby-led weaning, you're close anyways. Right. And so what we want to do is really work on the core, which means that you can do little baby sit-ups, you can do little tiny tornadoes. I know this isn't the best because they're not actually sitting. But if you check out my page, I have tons and tons of different exercises to build up that core. Anything online that is like talking about building up the ability to crawl is actually working on the body's ability to sit up. So working all of those things, typically, even in just working on crawling, we really do see the advancement of they'll typically sit right before they'll take off crawling on all fours. So that's a cool little fact to know. So work on all the crawling things because that'll work on the muscles that you need to sit, and it makes such a huge difference. Yes, we will have a Q&A every single day. I'm going to definitely spend a little bit of time after giving you guys all the information so that you can ask any questions that you have. I want you to be able to consult with me, especially as you're trying some of these movements with your kids. So thank you so much for being here. Another question. My nephew is 3 months with bad reflux. He is in the upright position all the time. What are some other options for him? So this can be really tough, okay? Because you don't want to make your baby really, really like miserable, right? Especially at 3 months old. So one of the best things, my parents with babies with reflux absolutely love this, is that football hold. So either this way, right, where you got baby like this, or you're putting baby like in a position like this, or oftentimes I'll even like have their little feet, if you can see that, their feet up against my stomach and holding them like this and just bouncing. This gives them like a lot of vestibular movement, but the pressure on the stomach actually is really awesome for them. They love that feeling. Kids with reflux absolutely love it. The inversion also allows a little bit of like, they're not going to be puking all over when, we're a little bit more horizontal. So being able to give them a little bit of pressure on their tummy, a little bit of that inversion, still working the neck, still able to move them through different positions. As far as positional goes, the way I had baby on the pillow, especially the boppy pillow, being able to put baby at an inversion, you'll still see them throw up a little bit, but typically in that position, they're not miserable about it. And so you'll have to wash a lot of your covers for your pillow, but at the same time, it makes such a massive difference to be able to get them in those positions. And the stronger, like that's a lot of the times that reflux is a weakness inside, right? Same kind of concept when it comes to like the baby-led weaning. So the more that you work that, the less time that reflex typically will stick around, as long as that's part of the problem, right? Like there's so many different causes and things around reflex but that is a big, easy way to like get your baby in lots of these upright positions. Another thing that I teach parents all the time is if they don't want to be like holding them with their arms, is being able to put them over their leg, but bringing that leg up a little bit just to give a little bit more of an inverted area, giving baby the ability to, kick something over here, playing with those feet, working on their body's ability to keep themselves upright. That's an easy way to work forward that way. All right, I think we have most of our questions answered. Thanks for being here today. And like I said, bring me more questions as they pop into your mind. Maybe write them down and bring them to me in the following days. So excited to be here. Thank you so much for joining me. And remember that the recordings are available. If you're wanting to keep those recordings past the end of the week, sign up for that VIP. You'll get access to a few more discounts and things like that as well. So again, I appreciate you being here and being part of this community and for really working on your baby's brain. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Have a great day.